Hey everyone, it's Ryan from Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here. Hopefully everybody could hear me. Got to bring my mic down. Man, I just keep screwing up. I got a lot going on. We have an absolutely fantastic show lined up for everyone tonight. And super excited. We've got a returning guest coming on, Jeremy Reeves from Cornell and Diehl, as well as we have three additional guests, and they're all coming from Alaska. I've got opposite ends of the United States, and then me directly pretty much in the middle. But we're going to do some quick little show maintenance here. So, obviously, this show would not exist without the amazing sponsors and supporters and partnerships that we have with various people and companies all throughout the industry. So, huge shout outs to BAMF Cigars, ROCF Cigars, Kristoff Cigars, K by Karen Berger Cigars, New Air Humidors, Sagrado Cigars, Micallef Cigars, Big Sky Cigars, and Jeremy Reeves' company, Cornell and Diehl. This was a company that I just absolutely fell in love with their pipe tobacco. Jeremy and I became fast, close friends, and Cornell and Diehl jumped on the opportunity, as well as I did, to partner with them. And we are going to be having Jeremy back on tonight. For anybody out there that is in the Colorado area or looking to come to Colorado this summer, July 21st, we have our big charity event, Rocky Mountain Cigar Night, and it's going to be at Dunafun Castle this year. Again, it's $150 for the ticket. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. You could probably just even scan the QR code on your screen right in the bottom corner of the flyer, and it'll take you right to Eventbrite. Tickets are going to include appetizers, open bar, full open bar, complimentary cigars. Last year we did 9. I'm hoping to do equal or greater than. We're having a challenge coin made just like we did last year, and it will double as a topper just to show everybody what it is. I thought it was really cool. So this is actually the glass from last year, and the coin doubles as a topper, so that way everything stays sealed. And the cool thing about it is you just put your coin on there. They're all numbered. So if you know your number, you'll always know your glass. So we are also going to be having live music as well as a live and silent auction with a lot of great items on the auction, and everything goes to benefit Shadow Warriors Project. Shadow Warriors Project is a Colorado based organization that helps Shadow Warriors with medical bills and expenses, and as well as dogs that they train for, all the way from PTSD to pretty much a dog that'll help get you something, a dog you can lean on. So it's a really great organization. And they've also recently teamed up with BAMF Cigars, our friend Ish over at BAMF, to create a custom blend for Shadow Warriors Project to have and give out or sell for their own fundraising efforts. So definitely keep your eye out for that one and your ear to the ground for that one, as most likely every cigar from them that you buy, portion of that will go to the charity, or at least that's my understanding that they're trying to work out. So it's definitely going to be an absolutely fantastic cigar. And then one last thing before we bring everybody in. I started a bacon company. Yes, my neighbor Jeff and I have been doing bacon for a couple of years now, and I've been getting repeat orders. And a lot of people have been telling me that this is absolutely amazing bacon. So we have decided to go into business together, and we started a bacon company. You might see some promotion on this show for obvious reasons. As well as if anybody remotely is interested in trying our bacon, it's named Rocky Mountain Gourmet Bacon. If you're remotely interested, we are currently taking orders. There's a few more spots left in June that we have available, and then we're selling into July. We have already sold several spots into July, but we do have a few more in June. So definitely reach out, get a hold of me. It's a $30 deposit. The remainder of the $120 will be due in the first 5 days of your receiving month. 8 pounds of sliced bacon, 2 pounds of cubed chunk bacon that you can use for whatever the heck it is that you want. We put it in soups. We make our own little bacon bits with it and everything. It all works out really, really nice. And I do personally think it's some of the best bacon. It is the best bacon I've ever had, and I've been fortunate enough and for people to tell me it's the best bacon that they've ever had too. So reach out, drop me a messenger or anything along those lines to get a hold of me, whether it be through Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it doesn't matter. Shoot me a message if you want to get on the list, and I will send you over the information. So, enough talking from me. We have the Cultured Hillbilly from the Ozark Mountains of Missouri. Thank you so much for joining the show, and we're going to go ahead and bring in our guests here. So, first up, we have in the directly this way, we have Frank, Ben, and Dakota. And then right down there below, we have Jeremy Reeves. Now, Jeremy, I'm going to put you up here. So we have the guests up top, and then my ugly ass down here at the bottom. So, well, let's go ahead. Jeremy, the show and our fans know you, obviously, as this is returning. Jeremy's the master blender for Cornell and Diehl. But let's go ahead and ask the Alaskan crew to check in, introduce themselves, give us a little bit of your pedigree background, and then we'll kick off and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Maybe I can kick this over to Dakota. Do you want to kick us off?
Hi there. My name's Dakota. I'm a recovering telecommunications engineer, current trash administrator. And I don't know. I've been working with the folks that own Fifth Avenue Cigars on and off for 10 years. And the company that owns them, the owners of that company, brought me on full time. And I'm one of the few people who can run the equipment we're using right now. So here I am and enjoying a little bit of your guys' product. I'm having Haunted Bookshop right now, which I thought would go pretty well with a little bit of cognac, and just kind of chilling at 4 o'clock in the afternoon during the workday, smoking and drinking.
I've got that one right here as well. Ben, what about you?
Nice. And I will say Dakota's he's modest and understated. We rely heavily on him. This dude's great. My name is Ben. I've been with this company, Fifth Avenue Cigars, for I don't know, about 3 years. Mostly a cigar guy, but I really love my pipes too. And that's helped me build a friendship with Frank here. But and we've brought Cornell and Diehl into our shop about a year ago, and I've just been really enjoying the blends. I will say, what was that? Cultured Hillbilly. Hello back at you, Ozarks. That's my hometown stomping ground, Springfield, Missouri. And also just back to the Cornell and Diehl thing. Mr. Reeves, I'm super excited to share a screen with you and meet you anyway. This is pretty dang cool, man. Thanks. And Ryan, thanks for having us on. And I guess that leaves us with Mr. Bell here. Frank, take it away.
That's me. My name is Frank Bell. I'm one of the founding members of the Alaska Pipe Club, which we started in 2019. And it's grown to be barely within my grasp of control nowadays. Been smoking pipes for several years, been coming around to Fifth Avenue Cigars since long before it was Fifth Avenue Cigars, back when it was Pete's Tobacco. Who was kind of a legend here for a long time.
Still is.
Yep, still is. And so, yeah, mostly just pipe collector, pipe smoker, have my giant 5 lifetimes worth of tobacco cellar like all the freaks out there do, and enjoy digging through it from time to time and hanging out with these goons when I crave a cigar.
And then I get samples from him when he's like clearing out the closet for new stuff. He's like, somebody please take this. I'm like, I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. And I am, we're all kind of doing the C&D thing here, since obviously we need Jeremy who's coming on. And obviously I'm familiar with you, Jeremy, and who you are. I don't think we've ever actually met in person. I know we've crossed paths occasionally on social media or shows or stuff like that, but I'm having some 2014 opening night that I decided to pop open yesterday. I also brought, if we get into bowl number 2, which I suspect we will, I got some 2015 Cajun cake here too that I'm excited to test out. I've smoked a fair amount of it fresh. It's probably my favorite vapor you guys have, except for Bayou Morning Flake. But I haven't had any with a significant age on it yet, so I'm excited to dig into that one too.
That's very cool.
All over that one.
I didn't mention
Awesome.
this when I was doing my spiel earlier, but I've got the Beast, new release from you guys, and I'm that weirdo that digs a heavy dose of Perique, so I'm enjoying it. It's very nice.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it.
I tell you what, I always get shafted because I never know when the new releases are coming out, and then all of a sudden, like 2-3 days later, I found out they just released something new, and I scour everywhere, and it's gone.
Man.
So
Best
your
thing
small
to do
batches sell quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you're following C&D social media, we start teasing new releases about 2 weeks ahead of time usually.
I do, but I'm terrible at actually looking at things. I've got so much on the plate right now. It's hard to just keep up with all the social media. Now, when you ask about social media, Ben and Frank are just all over social media, or maybe that's
We do our
Dakota
best.
for the Fifth Avenue. But so I want to kind of start with, what are some of your guys' questions that you have, being that there's multiple different years worth of experience between the three of you? What would be some of your questions that you would ask a master blender like Jeremy, either about his blend or about his blending concept and understanding, just to kind of kick off the show? We'll just get right in the meat and potatoes of it.
I got a question, and this is probably more in the perception side of things with stuff that you work on there, Jeremy. So having to have had to design products for end users in a completely different field, I find that I have to go with what works for them, even if it's counterintuitive and what I believe is not necessarily the best experience. Do you find a lot of times you got to give yourself not necessarily a reality check, but like you got to sit down and be like, am I out of place, or are they out of place? Like, do they need to expand their horizons and kind of push the boundaries, or am I just way too far out there and I need to come back and kind of mellow down my blend a little bit? And I'm assuming that you probably go for the wild and freaky kind of stuff as far as the tobacco is concerned, whereas the average person might not enjoy the same thing that you do. And how do you kind of separate the two so that you can come out with a product that works?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. So you're absolutely right. I tend to be more adventurous in my taste, not just in pipe tobacco, but I tend to be pretty adventurous when it comes to food, pretty adventurous when it comes to like just new experiences.
Okay.
I like to go to a city I've never been to before and just get lost. That's a thing I enjoy. That's a thing I enjoy doing for fun. But thankfully I am not, an island. I don't have, any sort of final say or control over every product that Cornell and Diehl puts out. My job is to make sure that we have excellent quality tobaccos to work with, both to produce all of our existing very large portfolio of blends, as well as interesting leaf to use for small batch releases. And I have a pretty wide berth as far as the creative freedom that I'm given by my company. But we still do, tasting panels and things like that. So it's not just like I'm not just the final say on what gets put out. So
You got some people to make sure.
What's that?
Oh, you got some people, like, you throw an idea and they are the wall basically, and they decide if it sticks.
That's correct. And we're looking at things. I mean, we do all of our own marketing. We have our own distribution. So when Cornell and Diehl puts out a product, it's not just like me being like, I think this is good and that's all that matters.
Of course.
We're looking at whether or not this will this will be something that we think we can market. whether or not this is something that we think that our retailers are going to be able to sell, whether or not we're going to be able to sell it on smoking pipes. So
I have a question then for you around kind of what Dakota just asked.
sure.
What is the and your microphone's coming a little on the staticky side. I'm gonna mute you and unmute you, and hopefully that prevents that. All right. So can you hear us still?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that fixed it. So what kind of sampling size, when you guys are developing a blend, do you actually look for or utilize? As far as people that smoke it?
We have the luxury of working with a fairly large group of pipe smokers who are in our marketing team and our customer service team, which deals a lot directly with every order that gets handled on smoking pipes. With our distribution team, I have access to managers and employees of shops all over the country, so we can really be creative in a pretty quick way about how to get feedback on an aromatic. And I know exactly who to bring this aromatic tobacco to who hates aromatics, exactly who to bring it to who loves aromatics, exactly who to bring it to that doesn't like anything C&D produces, exactly who to bring it to for like the dyed-in-the-wool C&D fan. I mean, that's really the meat and potatoes of kind of how I think about any style sort of blend that I'm putting together. Is like, who's gonna hate it, who's gonna love it, who only likes the most esoteric weird thing, who has really tight targeted ideas, and then can I change their mind with this blend?
Okay, that makes sense. Are you guys getting feedback with Jeremy too?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's still perfectly understandable, but
I can
Okay.
understand.
Then that's, as long as we can understand it, I can understand it, and if we all can, then everybody listening can. There's
Okay.
a little bit of kind of a double speak going on, Jeremy, but I don't think it's anything to be concerned with. So
Gotcha.
now,
Sorry about that, guys.
let me do this. Jeremy, what is a question you would like to ask a retailer? We'll just kind of go back and forth and just kind of dive into this stuff. Jeremy, what is a question that you would ask a retail shop 1 year into carrying your product?
Sure. So I think I was having difficulty with my audio earlier. You guys have been carrying our stuff for about a year?
To my knowledge, yes. It wasn't. It was about a year ago that we got in touch with Ladisi and brought him in. We've been selling pipe tobacco for a long time. I've been with the business 3 years. I'm not sure. We might have had them years ago. Pete might have had them. Anyway, yeah, it's been about a year, and we've done pretty well. We've moved a lot of the tobaccos, some of your more popular aromatics that are just like easy sells. Autumn Evening. Actually, we've been selling Nutty Irishman for a long time, but we were getting it from someone other than Ladisi. And since we found Ladisi and started doing more C&D, our price is cut in half on it, and it's great. Nutty Irishman is such a hit. So is Autumn Evening, but we do really well with like Dakota Smoking Haunted Bookshop. We've had Havana Daydream. We've got Bayou Morning in there. We've got Billy Bud Blonde. We've got your espresso blend. We've got Founding Fathers.
Billy Bud Blonde.
Billy Bud Blonde is a cigar leaf blend that's done with a touch of sweet Cetalatici. It's delicious.
No,
I love it.
I enjoy the name. It's Trip B.
Billy Bud Blonde, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it's been about a year. Had great response from customers. Yeah, and we're super happy.
Cool. Well, I am glad to hear that things have been going well 1 year in. You actually answered the first thing that popped to mind to ask, which was, typically we think of aromatics as being kind of the bread and butter of most brick and mortar stores, and
Sure.
Then every once in a while we run across a brick and mortar here and there where that's really not the case, but it's always like a particular shop. So I was curious to know if you guys were finding the aromatics were really the main thing that was selling, or if it was a wider swath of things, or if you had one particular product that was maybe the flagship product in your store.
I would have to say, if I had to pick a flagship of all the C&D products we sell, it's probably Autumn Evening. It's delicious. It's such an easy sell for all your new people, because everybody's coming in. Your people like Frank, he will throw us a bone and buy an ounce now and then, but I mean, he knows what he's doing. He doesn't need to come in and get my help. But most of the people that come into our brick and mortar are looking for my opinion. And I mean, you just put that under their nose and people fall in love with it. But on the other hand, I personally am interested in like the Virginia Perique blends and Burleys and some of the more natural and subtly nuanced blends. And I'm good at getting people interested in things that I'm interested in. So, and our customers respond well to that. I have a lot of customers. Like I said, we've gone through quite a bit of Haunted Bookshop. I sell quite a bit of Bayou Morning. Billy Budd does well. What was the other one? Havana Daydream does well. It's just I bring things up to people and describe it to them and let them smell it. And I get a lot of people that are interested in trying it just based on the fact that I'm excited about it. And like, you should try it. So our customers, we do a lot of the aromatics. Autumn Evening, Nutty Irishman, those are just that's easy. Those are underhanded pitches for all your new smokers and even seasoned smokers. But I get a lot of people that are really interested in expanding their horizons, and I have people come back and say they're like, you know what, that Bayou Morning you gave me, I really liked it, and that's pretty cool. It's gratifying to know that I'm helping people, and it's cool that people want to try stuff that's maybe outside of their immediate idea of what pipe tobacco would taste like.
Absolutely. That was one of my favorite things about working in a retail environment, whether I was in an in-person store or whether I was working customer service in the website area for either Smoking Pipes or Yvonne Reese. I really enjoyed turning people on to things that they didn't necessarily think they were going to enjoy. And convincing people to try something that was kind of outside of the norm for them, outside of whatever their box was. That's always the thing that I'm most interested in trying to do. Because if you can get people to experiment with what their idea is of good or bad, you can maybe really enrich parts of their life that they didn't know needed enriching or could be enriched.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I
look at it like you find something you like. I'm just like, I want other people to know too, because I love it. It enriches my life. I want everybody to enjoy it.
And that's one of the really fun parts about the Pipe Club is most people, when they first join the Pipe Club, haven't been exposed to a whole hell of a lot. They've smoked a lot of aromatics. Some of them have taken that typical first step into English Balkan territory. But almost none of them that come in are experienced with Virginias, Virginia Periques, Virginia Orientals, Webers, anything like that. And we actually keep a standing rotation, a few boxes of jars that come to every Pipe Club meeting that we just toss out samples to people that are new. Mm-hmm. And, go try this, go try that. And it's so fun to see the different roads that people take as their palate sort of advances and how people's palates change. And even a lot of the old timer, the long-standing members, you'll see palates continuously change throughout their life. Even if they've been solid on English blends, I only smoke blends with Latakia in it for 2, 3, 4 years, and then all of a sudden they just, for whatever reason, their palate starts to prefer Virginia-based blends, and it's just fun to watch. But it's especially fun with newer people that come in with, mostly only having had your typical brick and mortar aromatics, whether that's your Stokkebye goop, your Sutliff goop, or your Cornell and Diehl goop, but that's most of their experience, and it's fun to watch those doors open for people and see how they kind of navigate that journey. It's really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So I find mine changes all the time too. Like during summer, Latakia is my go-to because a lot of smoking of meats, lots of barbecues. Bacon. And it's either that or like
bacon.
Like a fire-cured cigar or like a really heavy English or like almost straight Latakia blend of some sort.
Oh, like Engine 99. That's one I forgot to mention earlier.
Oh,
We've done well with Engine 99. Yeah,
that one's always good.
So I got a question for you, Jeremy. So I've noticed a lot of like, what we commonly call, and maybe it's not the right term, but we commonly refer to as Empire Virginias, Africans, Brazilians, stuff like that are typically used in your Gallup blends, a lot of your European-made blends.
Mhm.
I've noticed some of that start to cross the pond a little bit. Like, this signature series that Seattle Pipe Club's putting out with Sutliff has got some Africans, some Brazilians in it, and I know you guys typically stick to your belt reds, Canadian brights, stuff like that when it comes to Virginia-based blends. Have you guys experimented at all with any Empire Virginias, or is there anything on the horizon that you might kind of go down that same route that Sutliff's sort of dipping their toes into? I know they have to hook up with McBaron, which makes it easier for them because of their connection with McBaron, but is that something that's on the radar potentially?
Well, it's something that I'm definitely open to, but our real focus in our flavor profile so far has always been on U.S. Virginia, and to me, I kind of prefer our U.S. leaf. There's a lot of great leaf that is imported, and I really enjoy Oriental, but there's no U.S. grown Oriental.
Right.
It's been tried and doesn't turn out. You're either growing Burley or you're growing Virginia, or you can't get it to grow at all. So no, at this point, we're pretty happy sticking with Eastern North Carolina red Virginias primarily, some Georgian Virginia in some of our blends, some South Carolina or even Floridian leaf, some Virginian leaf on our Virginias, and as of yet, I don't have any African or Indian Virginias that we're planning on using. That could change, but at this point, it's partly because of the flavor profile that we've really targeted with most of our blends, and then another aspect of it is that importation of those things is often quite difficult.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was curious about, because when Sutliff put those out with SPC, my obvious thought is, well, they're so connected to McBaron that maybe it's easier for them to kind of produce that under their label and kick it out. But most of the reason I ask is you guys have such a huge portfolio, and some of the blends you guys put out are so inventive that it would just be, there's such a different flavor profile with those Empire Virginias versus the American Reds and Brights and stuff like that I'd just be, my pipe smoker fantasy brain wants to see what you would do with some experimentation if you had those Empire Virginias at your disposal.
Sure. I would love to have a small quantity of those kinds of leaf styles to play with, but part of the issue is to make importation really worthwhile. You've got to bring in an awful lot of it to not just be paying through the nose on shipping, and so with such a large portfolio of products that we make currently, I can't see bringing on thousands and thousands of pounds of something that we might use to do one or two blends with.
Yeah. I kind of figured that's what the answer would be. I've always been just a little bit curious about it, especially since you started to see it pop up a little bit more over here than
Sure.
That's kind of what I expected.
If it becomes easier, I'm definitely not opposed to it. There is certainly some good quality stuff that is grown in India and in Africa.
Now, one of the things that drew me, obviously, Jeremy, this was the cigar that you did with Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
That opened my world up to Cornell and Diehl. If you were to, one of the things that I love about Cornell and Diehl is the inventiveness of it. I haven't smoked too much outside of the Cornell and Diehl brand. and I've almost given up hope of ever smoking all the Cornell and Diehl brand when I actually saw the full scope and breadth of your portfolio. But I'm trying to do my best. If you were talking to a club that wants to get into Cornell and Diehl, what would be, we know the aromatics that you would recommend for sure would be Autumn Evening, but what would be some of the non-aromatics that you would recommend for a club, a tobacco club, a pipe club to bring in? Sure.
I absolutely love opening night. It warmed the cockles of my heart that you had a 2014 10 that you'd opened for the show this evening. That's rad. I think opening night is a fantastic example of the kind of Virginia leaf that we like to use, and it's a straight ahead Virginia flake that I think has really nice balance. It's got really great depth of flavor, but it also showcases the natural sweetness that U.S. Virginia has, and utilizes a really nice Canadian grown bright Virginia as well. So the balance between bright and red I think is great in that blend. Another blend that I think is not as popular as maybe it should be is Sunday Picnic, and that is a brighter Virginia with a little less focus on the red Virginia, but with the addition of both Oriental and a small quantity of Perique. I think that blend is incredible. Both fresh and really aged. I think it shines. It turns into something entirely unique. I would recommend that a club check out Burley Flake number 5. I think it's an excellent example of what Burleys can do with a little bit of casing, and then to compare that against uncased Burleys, I would suggest checking out Pegasus. And then lastly, I would recommend to anybody who enjoys Latakia, I would recommend the blend Orient Express. It is full and rich and bold and has everything that I love about the flavor of Latakia, softened with just a touch of Black Cavendish and some Burley, and just a little touch of Oriental. And yeah, that blend is fantastic.
Now, a lot of people don't know this about Jeremy unless you talk to him randomly throughout the day like I do. But Jeremy's a huge tobacco historian where he tries to figure out all the historical aspects of how a tobacco was taken care of, how it was grown. He just got back from a big UK event that he did where he went over and talked about Perique. Correct? It was Perique, right? Yeah. And kind of the ins and outs of that. Frank, from your knowledge going in, is there a historical tobacco style question where how did X start, or why is something made like this that you've ever wondered in any of your blends, or why something is made a certain way?
Not for me personally, because I'm fairly familiar with it. Obviously, not to the extent that Jeremy is, but I bet these two guys would love to hear a little bit about the history of Perique tobacco, how it's processed, and everything that's going on with the new farm you guys are working with as well. I think out of any of the tobacco varietals out there, the most interesting one to me is Perique, just because it's such a unique process, it's such a unique flavor. And it's so geographically niche. And then, the Rustica is a very interesting thing that's working its way into a lot of blends too. But I think these guys in your general audience would love to hear about Perique in general and sort of the history of Perique and how it's made. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely.
My biggest question on it is, since it's a Virginia product of some sort, right?
Perique?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Louisiana.
Louisiana. Never mind.
Yeah, let Jeremy.
For some reason, I thought it was Virginia. I was like, how did we get some Cajuns or French people in Virginia growing tobacco?
No. So the Acadians came from what is now Nova Scotia down to Louisiana in the 1760s, and when they arrived, the area that they primarily settled was just to the west of New Orleans, and they settled in an area that was populated by Choctaw and Chickasaw natives, who just in this one little area on the north and east bank of the Mississippi, in this one small region that the natives referred to as the Golden Triangle, they did this fermentation process with the tobacco that they grew. So the Acadians show up and find the natives smoking this tobacco that has a deep black color and a really distinctive aroma, and they'd never really seen anything like it. They were familiar with tobacco at this point, but they'd never seen anything quite like the tobacco that the natives in this region were smoking. And over the course of the next 100 years or so, they became somewhat familiar with how the natives were actually processing this tobacco. And it was totally unique just to this one region, because you've got Choctaw and Chickasaw Indians that live in other parts of Louisiana, even other parts along the Mississippi River, as well as in the states of Alabama and Mississippi and Arkansas. But none of these other tribal groups did this crazy fermentation process that was taking place just on this one area around the northeastern bank of the Mississippi, around this little triangular region. Basically what they did was, after they grew the tobacco and harvested it whole stalk and let it wither on the ground for a few days, they would break all the leaves off and dunk them in water at the edge of the river, and then roll them into bundles and load them into hollowed logs, and use stones for weight and use saplings as levers. And they did this in a few different ways. Sometimes you're talking about a stump that has been hollowed out that they're stuffing tobacco down into, and then stacking stones on top of, and then taking a sapling and anchoring it on one end and bending the sapling over the stones and anchoring it on the other end. Sometimes you're talking about taking like a full chopped down log that has been hollowed out and plugging one end with rocks and then stuffing tobacco in the other end, and then loading rocks in the other side using a big branch or a small sapling, kind of like the action you would use to load a cannon. And then in those instances, they would actually dig a hole and bury the whole thing. So really, really wild pressing process that the tobacco is going through. And whether the natives really understood it or not, what they were essentially doing was creating an environment where anaerobic fermentation could take place. And nobody really knows what started this. Some people surmise that it might have first been born out of these particular tribes have not just a practical tobacco usage, but actually like a very fundamentally spiritual tobacco usage in both the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation. So some people surmise that they were trying to protect a tobacco crop. Either they were going to go on a long hunting voyage, or maybe they were expecting being raided, or they were going to go do a raid and they just wanted to stash some tobacco. And this ended up, a stash of tobacco getting lost for a while and then discovered later, and it had gone through this fermentation. Some people suggest that they were actually trying to take their sacred tobacco and integrate it using other aspects of nature around them, and trying to incorporate other elements of nature into their smoke. But whatever the reason, it was clear to the Acadians that came that the natives were serious and obsessive about this process, and that seems to have been contagious. So the Acadians eventually started trading with the natives to try and learn what the process was, and that's basically where we get Perique from now. So a bourbon barrel as opposed to a hollowed out log, and screw jacks as opposed to saplings used as levers, and large stones. Basically all they did was created slightly more industrial and more predictable ways to process the tobacco.
So,
That's cool, man.
So to that point, though, how much, since we changed to bourbon barrels,
Mm-hmm.
how much of that taste is different, do you think, from the original Perique of the day?
Sure, I think there probably is a slight added sweetness. I mean, unfortunately, we have no way of really.
Yeah, how would you know?
Going back now, my guess would be that you've got a slightly added sweetness, because not only do you have the residual liquor in the wood, but this has been charred. The wood's been charred, so you've got kind of a charcoal sort of burnt sugar thing going on.
Wouldn't there be more like an FDA approved kind of thing going on there too? Because in the process, originally, there would be all sorts of bacteria and fungus that would be different from every batch. And I could definitely see some of them definitely being a poisoning agent for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Going a little bit more of a trip.
Yeah, you don't want to smoke the tobacco that's been pressed in hemlock.
No,
yeah. That being said, though, I've opened some tins even today that would take you on quite a trip. Every once in a while, you'll find one that you pop open and it's riddled with mold for whatever reason, and it just got exposed somehow before it went in there, or popped a rust hole or whatever. But even today, you can find some that have been thoroughly destroyed by bacteria and mold. Very rare, thankfully.
That is true.
So, the AV crew, when you all are looking at trying new pipe tobaccos, whether it be Frank, you, Ben, or Dakota, what are you more sold on the exterior of, like, how it? So what I'm asking is, new cigar smokers are drawn towards the flashy bands, the eye candy. Oh, I don't know what I'm smoking, but this band looks really nice. So when you guys are looking at new pipe tobacco, how do you choose a pipe tobacco to go off of if you're not necessarily, like, do you guys analyze the tobacco that's in it, or do you go, oh, this looks fun? I know you do, Frank, but
I'm the neophyte, so I guess I'll go first. So how we sell tobacco in the shop is we have sealed bins with a label on them, and that's it. It's just a white and black letter label. and that's it. So there's no marketing there. It's just a name. So the name will sometimes draw people, but what I found is just like people kind of give you like a flavor profile that they've tried in the past and might want to try some new things. And so you'll bring down a couple different bins and open them up, and they can just smell them. And then you can smell the various different bins of tobacco and decide which one you want to go with. For me, when new stuff comes in the shop, it's a bulk package. It doesn't have marketing on it. It just is a name. And so I'll go through and just be like, oh, that's a new one. And I'll smell it and I'll decide, oh, that has kind of a fermented funk to it, but it's also got a little smokiness, a little bit of aromatic to it, kind of like that. And just go through and decide, oh, this is the one that I want to try this week or this month, or I have a specific pairing, like there's a specific cognac or bourbon or whiskey or rye or wine or something that I want to have. And then I'll go through and smell, 10, 15, 20 different containers. And no, that's the one I want to get.
So for
and I'll elaborate on that a little bit, and just, the marketing is kind of a part of it. One thing I do really like, I mean, we sell bulk blends. Jeremy, I don't know if you know, we have such high syntax up here. We have the highest. I dream
for a few more months.
I dream of having like a tin wall, but at least with the current state of how much we pay in taxes, it'll just never happen because they would be ridiculously priced out. So that leaves us with bulk blends, which is still cool because we have all the jars and people can actually like open them up and smell them and all that kind of stuff. I will say one thing I do appreciate about C&D is that when I get they come in bags and they have nice labels that I can nicely peel off. And so I do have my handmade labels that say autumn evening, whatever the price is on the front that faces them, but behind it is the actual manufacturer's label. So it actually helps me to not have to like know everything off the top of my head. I can be like, okay, I know this, but then I'm like, okay, I think I really like, again, like autumn evening, I think you like this. Smell it, check it out. And on the back here, this is actually the label from Cornell and Diehl. You can read a little bit more about it here, and it breaks it down. And some things like you're talking about the flash or the name or whatever, like Haunted Bookshop. That is some marketing like right that there. Name. I myself, I'm a horror movie macabre nerd, that kind of stuff, and I think people hear Haunted Bookshop and they go, ooh, well, what's that? I don't know. I want to smoke that. It's evocative of something. So to an extent, yes, there is a marketing connection between names like Haunted Bookshop and Autumn Evening. It puts you in a mindset, and then when you smell it, you're like, oh yeah, anyway. There is a connection to the marketing and the labeling and things like that. And specifically with C&D, we are able to utilize that and slap those labels in the backs of our bulk jars. So it kind of adds to the experience when I can pop the jar and say, here's what it is, smell it, check it out, and then here on the back is the label. Read it for yourself, see what you think. It's both helpful, and I do think psychologically people like that. Again, Haunted Bookshop is an easy example. As soon as I realized, like, shit, I want to try Haunted Bookshop. That sounds great. Like it just sounds fun. I'm in a Haunted Bookshop. Like, was this Ghostbusters or something? It's just kind of fun. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who they don't know, or maybe they know a little bit, and they're just looking for something different. And it does help. It is a factor. Maybe not as much as the new flashy band on a cigar, but it's not non-existence. It is a factor.
Yeah,
the name's definitely a catcher.
From my perspective, and this probably won't surprise any of you guys, I could give a shit less what the tin art is or what the name says. I mean, I have so much tobacco already, and I go, most of my decision making is based on who does well with what. Like for example, in my opinion, and no offense to you, Jeremy, but Sutliff knocks it out of the park with Virginia Flakes. Like their Virginia-based series they're doing with Seattle Pipe Club, the Crumble Cake series, the Kringle Flake, all those, they're just ass kickers with VA flakes. And if Sutliff puts out a Virginia or a Virginia Perique flake, I'm going to buy it, and it almost always is the right choice. Cornell and Diehl, I mean, anything that's burley blazed or anything that has a Virginia Oriental base, vapors, straight Virginias, I'm probably going to get it, if it's a new release. Most of the regular portfolio stuff I've already way deep on cellar wise. So I'll restock every few years on those just so I know, should I smoke until I'm 100 years old? I'll have that continuous, ladder CD, for lack of a better word, of blends. But for me, it's more about the producer and what they do well with than it is about anything involving name or tin art. I mean, HU is another great example. You can't get it stateside because they're a German producer, but HU could put out a Virginia Creek flake called Dog Shit Flake, and I would buy 10 tins of it immediately.
HU dog shit?
That would not matter to me at all.
So, but on to that point, like Frank, your level of expertise would fall into my level in the cigar world, in the sense that I'm the exact same way. I'm more interested in what the wrapper is, what the country it comes from, what the blend is, and the newer pipe smokers, including myself. Now I dive whole hog into everything. So yes, I'm newer in the pipe world, but I have done a ton of research into pipe tobacco. So, at this point in time, and I've smoked a bunch, I do look more at the blend and the makeup. But for the newer pipe smokers, Ben, how valuable is it to have that label, that logo? And the reason why I asked the question is, would it be valuable for a company like Cornell and Diehl or Sutliff or any of the others to actually put like a static cling label in there if they're doing bulk that you can actually stick on the jar?
Well, they did with Folklore.
Well,
yes,
sure we did.
I like I was saying, they have actual stickers that go on they're like 1 pound bags, right? But it's plastic on a sticker, and they haven't been on there for a million years to super cure. Like I have nicely peeled off the label of everything that I have. It's on the back of all my jars. I think I have 8 to 10 or whatever Cornell and Diehl products, and they all have it already works. The process that they use already works. And like I said, it is valuable. I don't mean to be like pat myself on the back, but the main thing is me, and people come in and they look at me like, oh, this guy knows things. And I'm humble. I don't pretend like I know any more than I do. I'm on the same journey they are. I'm more of a cigar smoker, but I love pipes. I'm still learning too. But so like I was saying, those labels, they help my customer because it gives them a chance to read something. It helps me because as I'm learning, I don't have to be an encyclopedia and regurgitate things verbatim off my mind all day. I can be like, oh yeah, this, I know this has some Virginias and Burleys, but maybe it's a little more specific. And it's on this label here. So it helps me, helps my customers. It's great all around. I appreciate that I can have these labels to kind of lean on for myself so I can speak, but also customers just like to be able to see it, and they're attractive. They're not static cling, but they come off like super easy. I've never had a problem just peeling them off. I slap it on a jar, it stays there, and it definitely does help.
Speaking of that, I mean, and Jeremy, I'm sure you already know this, and I'm sure there's a reason that most people don't do it. But from a packaging standpoint, the number one thing that your average pipe smoker, almost all of them, anywhere in the world would want from a packaging standpoint is a removable sticker that fits on the top of a mason jar.
Yeah, mason jar size sticker. Yeah, he's not wrong.
And Ken Byron Ventures, I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's got that down with shipping out stickers and everything. But there's a cost to it. There's an extra step in packaging, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people don't do it. But that's one thing I appreciate very much about Ken. The guy has his moments, generally speaking, but the fact that you get that mason jar size sticker you can slap on the top of your mason jar with every blend is fantastic. But like I said, I'm sure you're well aware of that, and there's probably a reason most people don't do it. But
yep.
So
it's just one more
step,
and it's one more thing that gets when you're talking about product that is distributed all over the world. It's just one more thing that gets messed up or that gets missed by whatever shipping department that you have no control over.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask Frank and Ben, because I know you've been kind of going through some of your lines for marketing and changing up some stuff. What's it? 5 o'clock shadow was one of them that you had changed up within the last few years. And I would like to hear a little bit around what marketing wise, how to market better to both a expert or very much more experienced versus a novice. So what type of questions would you have around marketing C&D better and getting completely opposite end of the country's opinion, and even a smaller, more probably harder state to sell into is Alaska, and for multiple different products. But I'm sure tobacco contains it. So what's something that you would like to know or understand about marketing C&D that you would like to ask?
He's like, I don't need these yokels' opinion, really. Like,
No. It's just I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think every shop is different, and then every state, because of things like taxation or flavor ban rules or things like that.
I mean, fortunately for us, there is no taxes for online purchases. So I buy, my pipe tobacco, like Ben said, I buy 99% of it at least over the internet. Most of what I buy here is cigars, when I want cigars, because I want this place to stay open, because it's rad. And I got to show them some support somehow, because I'm here smoking and drinking all the time. But so I get it at whatever price it's listed at smokingpipes.com. But as Ben said, if he were to stock tins of Cornell and Diehl or anybody here, you'd be paying, if I had to put a number on it, roughly $25 to $30 for a 50-gram tin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have the highest. It's between Alaska state and Anchorage municipality taxes. It is 135%. Wow. Which is probably the biggest challenge that we face in anything. Is like, I want to bring everything in, and I say I'm here as a representative of us, but it's like we want everything, and it limits us, because I'm like, I would love some higher end Cornell and Diehl tins. I dream of a tin wall, of multiple tin walls. But everything would be $25 to $35 a tin that you could buy online.
Just fix that for us, Jeremy, and you're golden, bud.
Come champion our tax. Come fix our tax laws.
I just, I'll get on the phone, and who is it that I need to speak to? And
Sarah Palin, I think. No,
right. Sarah Palin, yeah, she gets shit done around here for sure.
Call. Try and get a phone call with Dunleavy, but just say you're a major producer of tobacco, and you might actually get on the phone with the guy. He has no sins, though. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, so those are the people that have the most sins in a closet. So don't worry about that. I've always found, as somebody that grew up in the church, those that seem the shiniest have the dirtiest middle.
Oh, absolutely.
But I guess
life.
Absolutely. So let me ask it a different way. Being that Alaska has the high tax, what would be something either Ben or Dakota that a smaller company like Cornell and Diehl can do to get a better foothold in Alaska?
A smaller company? Is there any bigger companies than Cornell and Diehl?
Well, as far as like the big conglomerate of BC, I'm talking specifically Cornell and Diehl. And so what would be your advice or your opinion on better ways for them to get into Alaska or even going into other areas?
Traveling reps, honestly. Like
we have traveling reps.
Well, the few cigar brands and tobacco brands that have a rep that comes up here, that's personable, that will sit down, that's just a cool dude you have a beer with. and actually goes through the repertoire and is a believer in the product themselves, and makes an interpersonal relationship and makes sure to send those Christmas cards and et cetera, et cetera. Everything up here operates on a small business mentality for good and bad. And having like a personal relationship is a big deal. There's not a lot of enthusiast tobacco stores in this state. So your share of that market would be fairly limited, but if you're able to penetrate all those stores, you would basically corner the market in the state and get it on lockdown. But you'd have to have the right dude who took the time to come in, 3-4 times a year and like made an event of it.
Sure. How many shops are there in Alaska, which is a really large state?
It's large. It's spread out. It's a huge state, but I mean, Anchorage is what you would call a very small city or a really big town. Then you got Fairbanks, which is a little smaller, and then there's just
Squarebanks.
Yeah, I don't know. We have 2 major cigar/pipe shops in town.
And when he says major, he's not talking about like Ewan Reese
or
anything like that. He's talking about like what you would consider a very small B&M.
Major might be the wrong word. I should say proper. There's shops like Blazing Smokes, and they carry a whole lot of cigarettes and maybe a little bit of other stuff. But there's 2 actual cigar/pipe focused shops in town.
Every town in Alaska with more than roughly around 10,000 people has a proper niche,
which is like
cigar or pipe
8
shop.
places maybe.
There's probably about 25 shops around the state.
So that's about Colorado's about 24 shops.
But I would say of all those, how many of them are even close to being as big as ours, which is not like a huge shop?
Maybe Rat Pack and Fairbanks.
Fairbanks.
Us and Rat Pack. That's really all I could name off the top of my head.
Juneau, Kitchikan, and Sitka all have them, but this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but the native cultures down there do have a little bit of tobacco influence, so they do get some heavy traffic from that.
Sure. So
not
we do have traveling sales.
City and at 300,000 ish people, and there's 2 here.
Yeah.
But
I got Chip on here.
If you want to penetrate the market, it would be someone who's got, Washington and Oregon on their docket, and they come up here a couple times a year and just make their rounds, But it's the interpersonal relationships that would get weird, quirky products into stores up here.
I guess I don't know. The original question is like, what could C&D or any other company or whatever do to improve relations and stuff like that up here? I don't know how I could say to improve, but I would say that make sure you have an abundant availability of like bulk tobacco to deal with, because that's kind of, if Fairbanks doesn't have all of our taxes, but they're still pretty high. We're kind of living in bulk world. But I would say C&D is doing great. You have a lot of options in bulk. We're very happy with the selection that we have. I don't know if you know the connections through LaDisi. Our representative, his name is Joe Fabian. I don't know if you've met him or know him. That's great. Nice guy. I end up like, when I talk to him on the phone, I end up like bullshitting with him on the phone longer than I probably should have. He's super nice. I haven't gotten to meet him.
That sounds familiar, Jeremy.
It'd be great if he came up, but I understand this is also Alaska. It's not like popping next state over. But he does as best as anybody could, just being personal on the phone. I have a good selection of like bulk tobaccos to deal with. So I think I'm pretty happy with my selections and availability already. I guess if I should say if it could be improved, more bulk options, but it's not that there's not a lot already. There is, and we're happy with it. But I guess just go more. If you were concerned about trying to get more into Alaska, we need bulk. We need to be able to buy a big old bag at the best price possible, so that we can use a scale and weigh it out to our customers, because that's kind of what we got to work with. But you're already doing great at that. So I guess that's my feedback as the guy who's behind the register most days.
It's going to help you more than anything is more pipe smokers. That's the biggest problem.
Pipe smokers, Frank is doing great with that. I can't shout out the Alaska Pipe Club enough. They do great. Whether you're in Alaska or not, just it's a great little community. I've had a lot of fun. We've hosted a couple nights here, but it's really just like opening doors to people, and it's a really fun, welcoming community. And like you said, every time there's a meeting, there's like a big box of just all kinds of tins, and it's like Christmas. They're like, oh, what did Santa bring me? Like it's a fun time. It's a very great and welcoming community. They do a great job, and just happy to be a part of it. And
actually, I have a question that might tie into that a little bit. So with a lot of your blends, there's a lot of barrel aging that obviously occurs, or aging that incidentally happens in a barrel, not necessarily because you want to do barrel aging, because you need anaerobic aging. And every town in Alaska is, a fishing town with a drinking problem, or a drinking town with a fishing problem. And there's a reason why the syntax is so high up here. I have noticed, with the Buffalo Trace cigars that came out recently, which aren't, can I say they're not great? They're not great.
They're all right. They're fine. They're fine.
They're not great.
You could be honest. You could be honest. They're not a sponsor.
I don't. So. I think they're fine.
Yeah. But a lot of those cigars that came out recently, the bourbon groups up here are fervorous. It's almost a religion. And if there were to be a release that involved a very popular sipping liquor of some sort, as the primary part of the aging process, or somehow incorporated into the blend, or endorsed as a pairing of some sort officially by them, that would be a huge boost in sales, at least in our state.
I think that would be the classic Frogmorton Cellar stave chunk would be the easiest route to go there as far as bourbon.
And then the other side of that, do you ever have bourbon manufacturers contact you and try and shove their barrels as the preference for your aging product?
No. So we don't do any barrel aging outside of the at 31 Farms for Perique. Yeah. And there it's really just a matter of where can we find 40 barrels of 40 ex-bourbon barrels this year.
Well, they're getting gobbled up by the craft beer and whiskey industry as it is. They're tough to find.
Yeah, that's right.
You ever find yourself with Jack Daniel's barrels, incidentally?
Because
they're always available.
So we occasionally get Heaven Hill. We occasionally get Jack Daniel's. We occasionally get Woodford. It's just a matter of what barrels we can get our hands on for the farm to use any given year. But it doesn't make a perceptible impact on what the end product is. I mean, you've got to wash the barrel out,
right,
and then you're putting tobacco that has been wet with well water into it. So I don't think at the end of it you could really market anything as being like Elijah Craig Perique.
Right, but you could potentially do the Frogmorton Cellar thing with a stave chunk, and I mean, even if it were just a marketing ploy.
Well, unfortunately, FDA is a troublesome. It's troublesome on that.
That's why they don't ferment things in bogs, man.
Anything that touches your product, anything that comes in direct contact with your product, they want questions answered about, and you have to prove that whatever you were doing packaging wise on February 15th, 2007 is what you're doing now. So we can't start putting something into the tin now and not have proof that this is what we were doing pre-February 15th, 2007.
So here's a follow-up question I have for you then. So let's say you take, what the hell is it called? Is it Pennington Gap?
Mm-hmm.
The bourbon one, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So what could you, if you were to partner with, say, Woodford Reserve or whoever, could you actually throw on that label, like made with Woodford Reserve bourbon, even though it's just a topping or whatever. If you were actually using Woodford, could you throw that on there and still be in line with all the FDA, like the deeming stuff?
With FDA, yes, but we would then have to pay Woodford.
Well, yeah.
You know.
I think I'm just trying to find a road to accomplish Dakota's fantasy of the bourbon marketing line with pipe.
I want a Jameson barrel aged nutty Irishman. That's it.
No, you don't. Nobody wants a Jameson anything unless they're looking for some cheap.
Bushmills, whatever. I don't know.
Hey, Jeremy, you need a line on barrels. I've got somebody that'll give you a line on barrels.
Oh yeah,
we'll talk. Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry about that. I'll make that introduction and I can set that up to where they can give you a line on that.
That's great.
That won't be an issue at all. And in fact, the only thing I would ask is that you do a maple brown sugar bacon blend for me to come off of our new successes. So
can you call it panic attack or heart attack, or maybe
just throw some liquid smoke in a
oh gosh, that is awful. Throw some liquid smoke. Oh. That is the last thing you want on anything is liquid smoke.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Here, let me wring out a smoker and get a few drops of whatever liquid is in there, and we'll dust it on something. So I want to kind of change over into pipes because, to be honest with you, I have 6 pipes. I know nothing about them other than the fact that this is my favorite because it's Bing Crosby's favorite.
That's
and
Bing's
I
favorite, right?
love Bing Crosby. The next one on my list is the Gable, which I know is an apple over billiard. I have my granddad's pipe, which really does not smoke great. It's a square bowl with a massive hole. It doesn't smoke the best. I got it fixed over at Briarville in North Carolina, I think it is, or South Carolina, because it's my granddad's. I have smoked out of it. It works great. I love my Tortuga 614, but it's a billiard. So, Jeremy, I want you to kick us off with an explanation of if actually tobacco smokes different out of an apple, out of a billiard, and if the stem length actually plays into flavor profile and or coolness of smoke, because some pipe smokers inhale. So obviously coolness makes a difference. And I can tell you this pipe smokes hotter than this pipe because of the stem. So Jeremy, what's a quick breakdown of your explanation of billiard versus apple? Why apple? Why billiard? What tobacco smoke best out of each?
Oh man, so I'm a conscientious objector about a lot of this stuff. I think that 90% of everything that anybody says about chamber dimensions and this shape smokes this and this shape smokes this, I think 90% of that stuff is psychosomatic to one degree or another.
Bullshitey.
I think that you are right that a longer stem tends to give you, I don't think it's probably a cooler smoke so much as there is more, not stem, but shank rather. There's more absorption of moisture out of the smoke stream if you've got a longer wooden shank that the smoke is traveling through. So I think that it does impact flavor, losing some moisture in the smoke stream. I think that a cylindrical bowl that is narrow tends to do better with a less complex blend, so that you have just a real intensing of flavor through the course of, like a straight Virginia in a billiard, I think that's perfect. Straight Virginia in a really broad chamber, I think can get kind of burnt and cloying. But those are my preferences, and I would not at all say that these are hard and fast rules, or that I am free of the same sort of psychosomatic effects that I assume others are also often falling prey to. So those are my general ideas. If you've got thicker walls in your pipe, it's going to hold in heat. If you've got moderately thin walls, not so thin that you're risking burnout, but I think that really, really thick broad walls tend to actually just trap in heat and cause problems in the chamber. I think that having moderately thin walls allows heat to dissipate and is easier to smoke at a regular and relatively cool temperature. Those are just thoughts off the top of my head based on my own experience with pipes, but I don't subscribe to any sort of you should smoke this in this kinds of rules.
So
Yeah,
then
I mean, Jeremy kind of hit the nail on the head as far as it's when you hear people talk about that kind of stuff, it's really more of an excuse to nerd out and argue on the internet than it is anything else.
Yes, thank you.
I mean,
yes.
For starters, the whole even talking about shape rather than chamber size is flat out ridiculous to me. You know, this apple or billiard or whatever, all you should really the only even legitimate conversation should be about chamber size. It has nothing to do with the shape of the pipe or the stumble beyond chamber wall thickness, like Jeremy mentioned, and the fact that there's more surface area for moisture to land on a longer stem, a longer shank and airway. But the fact that I hear so much more about that than I do about the fact that 95+% of how enjoyable a bowl of tobacco is for you is going to come from your cadence, your technique, how you pack the pipe, the way you light the pipe. Those are the things that you should really be focused on when it comes to getting the best out of any tobacco blend, regardless of what pipe you're smoking it in. Absolutely. I do think there is some legitimacy to kind of what Jeremy mentioned with thinner chambers for more straightforward blends. Like most of my Virginia and Virginia Perique pipes, I try to stay 0.75 or below-ish for chamber diameter.
Now, hold on one sec, Frank. I just want to make sure. For those that do not understand what Frank is talking around chamber size, Frank, can you explain by showing a pipe or your pipe what you're specifically referring to as chamber?
Yeah, so I'll show you. The chamber is just the inside of the stummel, the hole in the pipe that you're loading the tobacco into.
So the inside of the bowl.
Yeah, so the whole wooden part of the pipe is called the stummel, generally speaking. And the bowl, I mean, you'll get people to argue either way. The bowl would be the bowl-shaped end of the stummel, right? The stummel is the bowl and shank. The chamber is where you load the tobacco into. And so you probably can't see it from there, but chambers come in a wide variety of sizes. You'll see some that are damn near an inch wide.
Yep.
And some that are as tight as points. I've seen some as low as 0.60 before, or 0.65. So there's almost a half inch of variance in the diameter of that chamber. And so with simpler blends like Virginias, Virginia Periques, anything that's not terribly complex, a lot of people feel that a thinner chamber produces a more enjoyable smoke for those. I don't think it matters anywhere near as much as technique and cadence do. But conversely, a lot of people will say a wider chamber that you find like a wide pot is better for English blends, particularly flakes. Flake tobacco, some people like wider bowls, but I would say, I mean, I'm primarily, probably 8 out of 10 bowls I smoke are going to be Virginia based, whether that's straight VA, Vapor, Baber, Virginia Oriental. And thus, the majority of pipes I buy, especially high-end pipes, I've got an Abe Herbaugh here and a David Huber here, I'm going to shoot for 0.75 or lower, just because But even that is me playing into this nerdiness a little bit of, does it really make a difference, in a smaller chamber?
Sure.
I think it does, but minusculely so when compared to technique and cadence and everything else.
Now, when you say technique and cadence, one of the videos that I first watched when learning around Jeremy Reeves was there was another YouTuber that talked about how when he met Jeremy at the Chicago Pipe Show, how Jeremy actually showed him the 3-pinch technique, which is the 1 pinch, pack it down lightly, second pinch a little bit more, and third pinch a little bit more. Is that what you're talking about around technique? Or are you talking about how much you puff? I smoke this shit fast, and I'm terrible at it. So what are you referring to, Frank, when you say technique?
Yeah, basically just how you load the pipe and how you smoke, your cadence. I mean, cadence technically, I suppose, falls under the overall term of technique, but cadence is by far the most important thing when it comes to how much you're enjoying a bowl of pipe tobacco, in my opinion. Because if you puff a freight train, it's going to burn hot. You're not going to get any of the flavors out of it. You're going to burn the shit out of your tongue.
That tongue bite is terrible.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of different methods. You'll hear people talk about breath smoking and stuff like that, but I started out breath smoking. I still kind of am like a modified breath smoker, I guess. But
what does that mean?
It's hard to explain, and it's even harder to teach someone how to do. Breath smoking is basically pulling smoke into your mouth while at the same time breathing in through your nose, and conversely pushing a little bit, not like blowing bubbles through a straw, but just a little bit of air back through the airway when you breathe out of your nose. And when you exhale, it's kind of a combination of breathing out the mouth and slight retrohale as well. And you can find like tutorial videos by the infamous Mutton Chop Piper and some other British dude on breath smoking. And I mean, they're talking about every, in through the mouth, out through the nose, then in through the nose, but not in through the mouth, then out through the nose and out a little bit through the mouth and all this shit. And it just gets, people get lost in it and it gets fucking ridiculous. But eventually, the overarching point is that some combination of those things will eventually be your sort of cadence that becomes second nature. And eventually, you won't think about it. You won't have to do it. It'll just be the way you smoke. But you need to get that. You need to get there before you're really going to enjoy the most out of a bowl of pipe tobacco. And that's why, like, people early on in their pipe smoking journey should not be even worrying about what shape the pipe is, other than that it's hopefully aesthetically pleasing to you. And if you want to try to clench, that it's clenchable. Should not be worried about, should I be only have pipes that have Virginias in them or only have pipes that only have latitude? Do I need to dedicate pipes to different blends and all this stuff? When you're first learning how to smoke, there's no point in worrying about any of that shit until you have a cadence that's developed enough that smoking is a pleasant, relaxing activity and you're getting the flavor out of the tobacco that you should. Eventually, maybe you want to dedicate pipes to just Virginias or just lap blends or just aromatics or whatever. And we can get into all that too. But early on, I see so many newbies asking about that constantly. Do I need to dedicate my pipes? Whatever. Don't even worry about that bullshit until when your cadence is second nature, then you won't even, if your cadence isn't good, you won't even be able to tell the differences, the minute differences that you're looking for when it comes to chamber size and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm kind of ranting here, but it's just it's a pet peeve of mine.
That's right.
No, that's great.
I'll jump in real quick. And Ryan, so like I said, Frank is a new friend, but he's helped me learn about pipe smoking, just that cadence and stuff. And like one of the things he said, you're not looking for like big, you just want to sip it, That's like almost like you're just getting like a little bit, these big billowy clouds and stuff. It's fun, but
it's not a vape.
Probably over chooching it. And if you can learn to sip it more gently. And Ryan, I will tell you this, as one cigar smoker to another, focusing on my tobacco, or excuse me, my pipe smoking and working on this cadence and how to walk that line of I'm keeping it lit, but kind of just barely and just get these great flavors come out. becoming a better pipe smoker has actually made me a better cigar smoker.
Yeah.
It's translated back over into my cigars. Like I've always known, don't over smoke them, don't smoke too fast or whatever. But practicing, like you got to really, like he was saying, you got to develop that. And working on my pipe smoking cadences and techniques came back to me when I was lighting up cigars and smoking those. And I find myself practicing the same kind of ideas. And it makes cigars I've had before better. I don't know. I feel like I'm a better cigar smoker after practicing my pipe smoking. Not that I'm like perfect with the pipes, but I have been working on it based on the general philosophies that he was just talking about. And it translates to my cigars too. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool thing. I'm predominantly a cigar smoker, but I fucking love my pipes. And yeah, it really translates all over the place. So like I would just echo everything he said. And as a fellow cigar smoker, you practice that on the pipe, you'll notice you're doing the same thing on your cigars, and it makes it even better.
And I agree with you. And in fact, I'm a big Lancero smoker.
Yep.
I am one of those guys that say stock Lanceros, and I'm the guy that buys them. Not buys them one at a time, but buys them by the box. And I feel that me smoking Lanceros has taught me to slow the fuck down.
Yep.
But I will be very honest with you. I would call Jeremy in the early stages of me getting into pipes. I act like this is years ago. This is a few months ago. And I'd be like, why does it feel like I'm smoking a straw in a glass? I'm getting gurgly. And Jeremy would be like, well, try this, try that. So one of the things that I realized in pipe smoking is you can't smoke it as fast as a cigar regardless, because it is going to drain down to the bowl and you are going to get that gurgle. Yeah. So Jeremy, when I called you, what was the advice trust me, I remember.
Just muted himself.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan, you just muted yourself, bro.
We lost you, man.
Sorry about that. For some reason, it went crazy. So, Jeremy, what is the advice that you would give a new pipe smoker that looks at you and goes, I always get the gurgle.
Number one, my thought would be that you've probably packed too much tobacco or too tightly.
Which is what I was doing
in the chamber. If you have not packed too tightly, then I would say that you may not have spent a little bit of time that you should have drying down the tobacco beforehand. I use a little tobacco tray that I can break up a flake or put a pinch or two of tobacco, just enough to fill a bowl. I'll set it in a tray and kind of play with it like I'm running my fingers through my girlfriend's hair or like through my beard, just kind of like sit and play with the tobacco a little bit and aerate it.
I sent Frank a picture earlier. I like to make mine into the most perfect circle I possibly can. Like I spread it out and make it to a circle, and then I'll spend the next 20 minutes or whatever just like trying to make the most perfect circle I can out of it, and that occupies my brain while I'm waiting for it to dry a little bit.
Absolutely,
that works perfect. Yeah, about 10 minutes usually is typically enough time, unless we're talking about a blend that is really, really goopy, maybe some aromatics,
or a Samuel Gowith flake.
They're going to need more time. But generally, I think for most producers, 10-15 minutes is probably good. Now, if you're in the bayou of Louisiana or some parts of South Carolina or Florida, then you may actually be doing yourself a disservice putting the tobacco in a tray and trying to air dry it. you may end up with something wetter than what you started off with.
Really? Okay.
It works well here. We're fairly dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not a problem
I think in
there.
Alaska, I think
The wet
in
state, man.
Colorado, I think if you're in your average air-conditioned office or apartment or tobacco shop, shouldn't be an issue.
Some people nuke it, which I've never been able to bring myself to do. But some
Are
people,
you serious?
Yeah,
Some
that's
people
right.
put
Some
it in the
people-
microwave?
Yep, some
Yeah.
people will just put it in for like 3 to 5 seconds in the microwave.
Really? Now, Jeremy, why does pipe tobacco come so wet?
So the moisture level in pipe tobacco is for a few reasons. One is because if you are trying to store loose tobacco and you pack it into a bag or into a tin quite dry, then it's not going to store very long before you've actually begun losing flavor, because first the water is going to evaporate, or any booze that's been applied, like that'll evaporate, then the water will evaporate. But once you've lost all the available water, then you start drying down oils in the tobacco, and when you start losing moisture, then you've really lost a significant source of flavor in the tobacco. So keeping the tobacco a little moist helps preserve flavor. Keeping tobacco a little moist also helps to preserve the integrity of the cut of the tobacco. And in pipe tobacco, we think about long-term aging for fermentation. You need a little moisture in there for that to happen.
So I want to move on to aging, and this was a perfect segment into it. Frank, as somebody that's been smoking for a long ass fucking time, are there any aging questions that in the beginning required a lot of like, do I do this? Do I do that? That you would ask Jeremy, or that you have ever wondered, as far as aging cigars is different than aging pipe tobacco. So when you first started, like you have a 2014 that you opened tonight, or 2015 you opened tonight, what is your experience when you first started getting to the point of aging tobacco that you would be able to give people pointers on today? And then Jeremy, part 2 to the question is, what is your opinion on how long tobacco can be aged? And what I mean by that is, a 50-year-old cigar loses a ton of fucking flavor, but a 10-year-old cigar kind of enhances it. So, Jeremy, the question to you is, where is that fall off point where you start to lose actually from the tobacco? So, Frank, I'll start with you.
I mean, the most common question early on when people first start to wonder about aging tobacco is obviously which blends are good to age and which blends aren't. The common answer you're going to get to that is that anything Virginia based typically is going to be a decent candidate for aging. A lot of people will tell you that Latakia fades a little bit with aging. I will tell you it takes a while for that to happen usually.
True.
And even if it does, as long as you have a solid Virginia or Virginia Oriental base under there, it can still be very, very enjoyable as an aged tobacco. But aromatics are probably the most rejected candidates as far as aging is concerned.
That
That's
makes
the
sense.
biggest question, but it's like aging anything, like aging cigars or craft beer or fine wines, there's a ton of variance in what's going to do well for a really long time. Some blends I've had deteriorate fairly quickly. I've had some, and again, no offense to you, Jeremy, but I've had a few GLP's blends. Like I popped a tin of 2003 Stratford the other week, and honestly, I think it was not as good as some of the 4 and 5 year old tins I've had of that blend. Conversely, there are some blends that do miraculously well for a long time. I opened up a tin of Benson and Hedges Mild Flake from the 1970s a couple weeks ago, and it was flipping phenomenal. But it's always a gamble, especially with really old stuff. I would say anything beyond 10 years, if you're buying it at an increased price, unless you have experience with that blend, that blender, know the era, whatever, you're taking a risk. If you go 20 years plus, it's almost to the point of a coin flip, where half the time you're going to find something wonderful, half the time you're going to pop it and find a rusted out, gooey, moldy, or totally zombie dust dry pile of useless dog shit. So it's you don't know until you do it, right? Unless you've had, experience with that particular blend. But there are also blends out there that are super famous for their aging potential. You're going to see a lot of people laying down stuff like Orlick Golden Slice, Escudo, Dunhill Navy Rolls, Dunhill Flake. Oh, there's a Full Virginia Flake by Sam Gallett. There's a ton of them that people are really, have found them to be consistently good when it comes to age. But there's just no guaranteeing what's going to be in that tin after that amount of time. So it gets to be kind of a gamble. What I'll also say is after 3 or 4 years-ish in a tin or in a jar, depending on what you're smoking, kind of like with expensive scotch, like the quality goes up is going to get incrementally smaller with those extended periods of time. Like you get the biggest difference, in my opinion, is the first 5, maybe to 10 years in some cases of that age. For some blends, it's in the first 2 years. Like Peter Stokeby, Luxury Navy Flake, Luxury Twist, Luxury Bullseye. The difference between those blends fresh and those blends after they've been in a jar for a year or 2 years is insane. How quickly they change with age. But once you get over 10 years into that 15, 20, 25, 30, there's not going to be a tremendous difference for those extended decade of age as there is early on in that first 5 to 10 years, in my opinion, with what I've smoked. Now, I certainly haven't smoked everything out there with a ton of age on it, but that's what I've come to find in what I've laid down so far and vintage tins that I've purchased,
So Frank, on that point, do you leave the tin completely sealed or do you crack it for aging?
It depends on what it is. Most of the time I'll leave it. And it also depends on how many tins I have. There's some stuff like the Peter Stokeby blends I just mentioned don't come in a tin, so you're aging them in a jar no matter what you do. But some makers and some packaging is notoriously unreliable for aging. Anything that comes in a paint can style tin, like some of the HU blends, the Peter Heinrichs blends, are kind of notorious for losing their seal pretty quickly. Anything that's square, people will tell you there's more risk. But
really, square?
There's that consistent circular seal, I guess, is more reliable than a square with those corners. But that being said,
I never thought of that.
That tin I opened from the 1970s was square 2 weeks ago, and it was perfectly fine, perfectly sealed. But I've only ever had 2 tins actually pop in my cellar without me popping them. But anything that comes in like a paint can, I'll just pop it and jar it. But if I buy a blend that I know I'm going to lay down a fair amount of, like let's say I buy 10 tins of it, I'll throw 5 of those tins in the cellar and I'll jar the other 5 because A, I don't know how fast I'm going to go through the 5 that I put in the jar, and B, it's fine to age in the jar. It's not, I don't have enough experience with jar versus tins aged, because really aged stuff you're only ever going to find in a sealed tin. No one's going to be, you're not going to find, like if you're buying it secondhand, no one's selling jars of 30-year-old Virginia Flake. It's going to be sealed tins because that's what the market wants. But I've had plenty of old blends that were in jars, and they seem to have the same aging potential to me as keeping it in a sealed tin. So I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. I mean, I'm sure you'll find some super nerds out there that'll argue with you on that point, or probably calling me an idiot right now in whatever comments are going on. But that's just my experience. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just what I found.
So Jeremy, as a blender, when you hear Frank's explanation of aging, what is your viewpoint on that? And then what is your viewpoint on beyond X amount of time for most tobacco, it's kind of a loss at that point.
So first of all, I think, Frank, I agree with your aging synopsis. It sounds very much like your experience and my experience are in line in terms of above all else, aging tobacco is a risky endeavor. And the longer you go, the more of a crapshoot it is. What the end result is going to be of that time aging. And I totally agree with what you said about the most change in a blend is going to be in the earliest, I would say, year to 5 years. It also has to do something that I like to point out to people. Part of the reason that we don't vacuum seal our tins, they have a mechanical seal, and there is air inside, is because, one, that mechanical seal is more has more integrity for the long term than a vacuum seal will. I've had problems with square tins or with round tins as well that were coin open style. If they were vacuum sealed, I've had problems with both those styles, where whether it's because they get jostled in the container that I'm using to store everything in, or something happened maybe before I got the tin that caused a dent or something, but those can lose their seal. So we use a mechanical seal on a steel tin, so that you have the most likelihood of not losing your seal through the course of 10 or 15 year stay or longer in your cellar. The 2003 Stratford, I also had a couple of tins of 2003 Stratford. Those were in the taller, like narrower cans.
Yep.
Those things were really, really, really thin. The metal was really thin. And almost all of the tins that I've had from P's and from C&D during that time period have been too dry.
Yep.
So I do think that if you bought Stratford that was produced now back to say like 2014, I would have a lot more faith that tin is going to make a longer journey in your cellar with better outcome for you than the 2003, because those tins were just not reliable, and I've had some that made it and some that didn't from that time period. But as far as how long a particular tobacco can go, as with all these things, there's an eye of the beholder element. Somebody may be like, I like a Scudo that's 35 years old. That's the age I'm shooting for. And somebody else like myself may be like, I really like 15 years quite nicely on a Scudo. I've had Bayou Morning Flake that was fantastic from 2004, 2005. I think that it could go longer, but I don't think that I need it to go longer. I think that 15 years typically, I'm usually pretty happy with the outcome.
I'm cellared more heavily on that blend than anything else you make.
What's that?
I'm cellared more heavily on that blend than anything else you have. Bayou
Morning Flake. Yeah.
I gotta get me some of that. I'm gonna order it tonight.
It ages beautifully. But that said, tobacco in you mentioned, Ryan, how cigars kind of age out of flavor. But if you think about the way that cigars are stored, they're stored in wood boxes in cedar containers with lots of oxygen, and eventually all of the flavor of that cigar is just sort of imbuing the environment around it. It's sharing its flavor with the other cigars that it's in storage with, and its flavor is seeping into the wood that it is stored in. Whereas if you've got tobacco that is packed into a glass or metal can and is sealed up, there's really not anywhere for some of that stuff to go. And so if there's enough moisture there to make the journey, you shouldn't be losing oils the same way that you do in, say, a 30 or 50-year-old cigar. And I've had even cigarettes that were over 100 years old that were packed in the old metal cans.
Wow.
That are delicious.
Wow.
Like, absolutely delicious.
That reminds me, before I forget to ask, Jeremy, are you going to be in Chicago next week?
Yes, I definitely will.
All right, I will see you there, my friend.
Awesome, man.
Sorry,
very cool.
your vintage cigarettes comment reminded me about the show.
Oh yeah, because Steve Norse always shows up with some old cigarettes wherever he is. He's always got a can of old cigarettes, Chesterfields, or we had some absolutely fantastic Players Navy Cut.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, I've got a pack of Pall Mall and Lucky Strikes that don't have a tax stamp from a ration upstairs.
Oh man,
are they?
Wow.
They were metal sealed till I got them.
Oh,
and they were fine.
Wow.
They're in a sealed container in our humidor, and I don't know. Occasionally, when I'm really messed up or it's a celebration, you have to have one.
yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
I would recommend maybe getting them out of your humidor and transferring them to a jelly jar. Just something that you can keep them in an airtight container.
Yeah, they're in an airtight container. They're just sitting in the humidor next to
Oh,
my
I
other.
see. Okay.
It's a big walk-in humidor room where we have our little employee racks.
I gotcha. I just misunderstood.
So, real quick, since it was brought up, I was going to bring this up at the end of the show. Jeremy, tell everybody where you're going to be at next week, what that event is, and everybody fucking watching this show right now better go up and tell Jeremy hi. And then I watched you on Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. So definitely, Jeremy, tell everybody what you're doing, where you're going to be at.
So the Chicago Pipe Show is taking place next week on the 27th through the 30th of April in Lincolnshire, Illinois, at the Marriott Regency. Is that right, Frank?
Yeah, Lincolnshire Marriott Resort, I think it's called.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I don't know if there are still rooms available, but if you're interested to try and attend the Chicago Pipe Show, I would recommend going to just Googling Chicago Pipe Show and going to the show website and following the links to the hotel and seeing if they still have rooms available at this late date. I imagine they do not, but there may be other hotels in the area that are also not all booked up. So yeah, it is a long-standing show. Used to be held in a different resort, and the resort is no longer in existence, and they were able to find a new venue last year, and it's the same place that it's being held again this year. And yeah, you've got pipe makers and pipe tobacco producers and retailers and craftspeople of all sorts.
Nerds selling pipes out of hotel rooms.
Yep. Yep, that's right. So yeah, it is a pipe get together, piping good time. smoking
Well-
tent out back and stuff. And yeah,
Well, I tell you what, Frank, you definitely have to make your way over to the C&D. Say hi to Jeremy. I want that picture, so post that picture of the two of you together. I love putting people together, especially with companies that I love and respect. And so, as we close the show here, just really, really quickly, Frank, Ben, Dakota, what are your favorite pipes to smoke out of currently?
I'll let you.
What I mean by that is, do you have a go-to brand? There's a lot of pipe brands, Savinelli, Peterson, and then all the additional stuff. So, what are your go-to pipe makers? Right. now?
I'll jump in here real quick because I'll be quick. I am currently smoking out of the Peterson. It's last year 2022's Halloween edition, and if you know me, I get annoyed by people who bite the shit out of their pipes and put teeth marks all over. I mean, it just happens. You're gonna get a little bit of it, but I get annoyed at these people that just chew the shit out of them. And I bought this, and my cat knocked it off the table, and my dog. You're not gonna be able to see it on here, but my dog put his teeth in here pretty significantly. He didn't ruin it. It's still very nice to smoke out of. It doesn't rub my lips up, but you know, and I love the guy. And one day I'm gonna miss my dog, and so I was just like, you know, I'm not replacing this stem. I'm gonna leave it because one day I'm gonna bust this pipe out, and it's gonna remind me of my guy.
Of course.
But anyway, I love this thing. It's great. I also really enjoy Savinelli's. I've got one of their autograph pipes. I think it's great. My day-to-day though, I have a short commute. I have like 10 to 15 minutes max drive from my home to work, and I have a couple different Missouri Meerschaum corncob pipes that I keep in my car. You know, I got the dual cup holders, and in between's like the little divider. The bowl just happens to rest perfectly in that little divider. So I've always got a Missouri Meerschaum corncob pipe in there, and I'll pack the shit out of it, and it lasts me like a week, and I smoke it. So my day-to-day, and what I recommend to a lot of my new customers too that aren't, you know, they're not ready to drop a lot of coin, but they want to enjoy the experience and try to figure it out, like grab a corncob, man.
Yes.
That might be like a super basic answer you're not expecting or looking for,
Right.
but I love my cobs. That's what I smoke more than anything else because of my little daily commutes. But I'm not doing that. I definitely enjoy my little Peterson Halloween pipe. I've got a Savinelli or two that I really enjoy. And we around here like Smith House, but I don't own one, but I know this guy has probably like 7 of them. So I'll turn it over to Frank.
Well, I guess we could start there. Smith House Pipes, Rich Rosselli in Long Island, New York.
And shout out Smith House. Yes.
Yeah, and the Long Island Pipe Club has sort of unofficially become sort of our sister club. There's a lot of good friends there, but he makes a great pipe. They're not super fancy, but his stem work is so good. They're really easy to clench, and they run about $200, which for a handmade artisan pipe that you can commission is super cheap.
It's not bad.
But it's mostly the stem work that you're paying for with Rich. His blasts are great. The pipes are aesthetically pleasing. They're nice pipes for sure. You might not see, perfect rippling ring grain or whatever on every pipe, but the stems are going to be top notch no matter what, which is huge. They're just champ smokers. But outside of that, it's a really tough question to answer. I've got 100, 120 maybe pipes kicking around. I really like artisan pipes. There are certainly some factory pipes I like, some of the Peterson lines, some of the Savinelli lines. But
well, Frank, let me ask it to you this way then, because you and Jeremy have vast collections. What is your favorite pipe that you own?
That's like asking somebody with 100 kids who their favorite kid is. But
okay, fair enough. I could tell you it's
I'll
easy. I own 6. This is my favorite pipe. So
I'll just break it down into some of my favorite artisans. I really like what Abe Herbaugh's doing. Jay Allen is an excellent pipe maker. They're kind of spendy, but he's really doing some incredible stuff. The late Bruce Weaver was one of my favorite artisans. Unfortunately, passed away a number of years ago, but incredible pipe maker. David Huber, he does some wild and crazy shapes, but some of his more traditional stuff I'm super into. We already mentioned Smith House. You know, there's all kinds of European pipe makers too. Wojtek Pastuch, Regina Scarlata is an up and coming one I really like a lot. Same with El Sergio pipes. There's a ton. There's just so many out there, man. It's hard to rattle them off. But you know, if I had to pick a handful without thinking about price, Abe Herbaugh and Jay Allen would definitely be up there on this side of the pond, anyway.
So Frank,
and then before I get off that topic, though, if you're on a budget, there's really good value to be found in French pipes. Gino, especially, is a really good value brand. Their pipes run $50 to $100 usually. I actually just bought a $50 Gino today that has grain on it, like you would see from an artisan. You really have to hunt to find nice grain on those, but they do exist. But they're just great engineered pipes, and they have vulcanite stems. Same with ROCF, which are super lightweight, which is great for beginners. They're super cheap. The construction is mostly fine. You're not going to have fantastic blast or fantastic grain, but if you're on a budget and you're new to pipe smoking, ROCF and Gino are two good brands to look at. France despite St. Cloud being the birthplace of the briar pipe, France seems to get shit on in some circles these days when it comes to factory pipes. I have no idea why, but Gino and ROCF are great, cheap, affordable options, in my opinion.
So, Jeremy, give us your favorite Ferrari of pipes and give us your favorite starter level of pipes.
Okay. I think my favorite pipe maker overall has got to be Former. Hans Former Nielsen he's been making pipes for over 60 years. He has a classic aesthetic that is understated and beautiful, and I love his apple shape, all of the iterations that he does. I love his freehand work. I love his billiards. His interpretation of a billiard is, to my eye, basically perfect. And then starter pipe, I think it's hard to beat current production Peterson or ROCF. I think ROCF offers a really, really great value. They have really cool horn stems. They are made with old, well-aged wood, and they smoke really nicely. And I think Peterson is also a really great homage to history, and that is a pipe factory that has a lot of really cool history in Ireland, and I think they have a really unique shaping aesthetic, and they smoke great. So I think those are great entry level options. And then I think that Former is, to me, like kind of the pinnacle of my own personal pipe aesthetic.
And they're only $3,000 a piece.
Yeah. Holy shit!
They didn't used to be.
Oh my god! $3,000. Okay, so
real quick, Jeremy, since you mentioned Former, that's part of the reason I really like what Abe Herbaugh is doing. His apple shapes and Former's apple shapes are quite similar. And
I agree. I also really like Abe, and I have a few of his pipes as well.
So I'll DM you a picture of a pipe he made for me for a 7-day set of Alaska themed pipes I've got. That is a Former styled apple, and it has a shank mount of walrus ivy that's been scrimshot by a native artist. I'll DM you a picture of it. It's a really cool pipe.
Oh, you know what? I was trying to figure out who made that pipe because I think it's on. There's an image of it on the Alaskan Pipe Club.
Oh yeah, yep.
I saw that pipe and I was like, man, that is scrimshaw. That's really cool. I have no idea who made this pipe, so now I know who made that pipe. But I would love to see a more detailed photo of it.
Yeah, it was Abe.
Yeah, he's great. And the pipe that I smoke more than probably any other pipe that I own is made by Jay Allen and belonged to a friend of mine who was also a friend of Jeff's, who worked at Smoking Pipes and who passed away back in 2018.
Oh man.
So So yeah,
this Abe Herbach Cuddy here is part of. I had 16 makers make.
Can you put that closer to the camera so we can see that?
Yeah. So I commissioned 16 cuddies from 16 different carvers.
Wow, that's beautiful.
The one Abe made was the winner of the March Madness style Cuddy Madness competition.
Nice.
Got a little keel on the front, kind of. So I know it's hard to see on camera, but just funny we mentioned that Abe coming up, but he's been victorious.
Abe is fantastic.
Yeah.
I also am a big fan of the work of Chris Asteriou.
He was also one of my cuddy makers. And
nice.
He was the runner-up. Now that you mention it, that was them two in the final. It was Chris and Abe.
Yeah. You couldn't find two nicer guys, and both of them make really, really excellent pipes and are using really, really interesting details to distinguish their work from other makers.
For sure.
So, Frank, in closing here, I have an educational question for you. How much of Alaska Pipe Group would maybe be interested in a history of Virginia, Perique, Latakia? And what I mean by history of, I mean like an in-depth understanding of origins, where it came, how it's changed, and where it is now. How much do you think Alaska Pipe Crew would be interested in hearing the history, the understanding, and the overview of the different layers of tobacco?
You're talking about like if it were some kind of presentation, or?
Correct. So, for instance, if something was to be created to where Alaska Pipe Crew can turn around and say, hey, we want to know the history of Virginia, Perique, Latakia, Cube, anything you're talking about, how much do you think the pipe community would like an understanding of where everything came from?
I think the majority of the club would be interested in it. It's depends on who shows up to whatever meeting it is. Yeah, some people, if something like that were on, it'd be hard to get everybody to shut up and stop dick slapping each other. But most of the club, I think, would be very engaged and interested in that type of thing for sure.
Okay, fantastic. And so in closing here, I really appreciate everybody coming on. Jeremy, of course, always love having you on. Learn a ton. You're my pipe encyclopedia, which is fantastic. And thank you so much for Frank and Ben coming on as well. It's been absolutely fantastic to kind of get somebody like Ben, who's on my level of pipes, and then watching you kind of going back and forth with Jeremy with stuff that I don't fully understand, but hope to at some point in time. So I really, really appreciate both of you taking times out of your night, and as well as Jeremy taking time out of your night to come on the show. And so I will give you, because I told Ben that I would. Ben, yes. Go ahead and plug Fifth Avenue, plug the shit out of it, and then we'll give Jeremy closing comments, and then all you guys stick around until after the show's done, because I would like to chat with both of you, or with everyone as well. So, Ben, plug the shit out of Fifth Avenue.
Okay. I'll just make this as brief as I can. We are your quintessential friendly neighborhood store. You can walk into the shop. I don't care if you've never touched a pipe to you've been doing a little bit to where you're like master piper or whatever. We're going to treat you with respect. I'm going to try to help you find something that is on your level. You know what I mean? Like there's arrogance in the tobacco community sometimes. I think people have this, especially newer smokers, have this like fear of this old guy with his pipe or his cigar, and like, I don't want to piss him off by asking the wrong questions or whatever. That's not us. Come in. We're friendly. We're happy to have you. We have an expression, it's not ours, but that we like to use around here. It's a rising tide lifts all ships. We want everybody to enjoy cigars, pipes, tobacco in general. So if you happen to be around here, please stop in, bullshit, have a good time. I'll help you get into a good pipe with the price that you're looking for. We have almost 50 different types of tobacco that you can smell and check it out, and I can sell you a little or a lot or whatever you want. We have a great store. I'm here because I love being here, and I'm grateful every day to be here. So if you happen to be around, come here. And we also have a cigar lounge that is eminent.
Lounge on Fifth.
If you know, it's the lounge on Fifth. If you know about this, you've been waiting on it for years because we've been working on it for years. But we are within a month or two. We are very close. We will be open very soon.
It's like twice the size of the shop.
It's huge.
It's like a
We have about
Wow.
45 chairs. We've got TVs
Holy
everywhere.
shit.
We have lockers. It's cozy, big, comfy chairs, etc. We want people in. And again, just like the store, the lounge is friendly. You don't have to know your head from your ass. Just please come in and enjoy smoking and camaraderie conversations. And also, you didn't ask, but I was, again, Alaska Pipe Club. Alaska
Yes,
Pipe
of
Club.
course.
If you're here or not, join, check it out. It's a great community of people. If you want to know more about pipes and pipe smoking, they're my go-to. I'm not the expert here. Frank is, but he's also just my buddy. So we talk. They're all friendly. We're all friendly. Please come in, enjoy the store. Hit us up on social media, Instagram, whatever. Fifth Avenue Cigars, Alaska Pipe Club. And if you're watching this, you're awesome. Thanks so much. And that's about it.
So then real quick, because after I asked all that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go back and touch Alaska Pipe Club. Frank, how do people get in contact with Alaska Pipe Club? How do people become affiliated with it? And what are the benefits of being part of it?
Yeah, so there's 3 different ways you can get a hold of us. The most active one is probably our Facebook page, which is where you technically join because it's not a public group. You have to answer 2 membership questions, which is, are you interested in pipes and tobacco? And do you live in Alaska? And as long as the answer to the first one is yes, I'll let you in. And then obviously Instagram, we have a fairly good presence there. And then we also have our own website, alaskapipeclub.com. Any of those 3 ways, the person you're going to get in contact is with me, and I can give you the rundown on when the next meeting is going to be, what meetings are all about. Sometimes we have digital meetings. Most of the time they're in person. Anybody that comes to a meeting for the first time gets a free Alaska Pipe Club hat, and a couple of stickers and everything else. So, it's just like Ben said, it's a really informal group. There's no bylaws. There's no rules. We're not, an LLC or an S Corp or any of that BS. We're just a big group of friends that like to smoke pipes and hang out with people. And like he said, it doesn't matter if you don't know a damn thing or if you know everything about every pipe ever made. It's just people getting together to enjoy a bowl and have a good time. So
Absolutely. And Frank, I want one of those hats, so you're gonna have to tell me how to get one. Jeremy, why should people choose Cornell and Diehl, and why does Cornell and Diehl? Well, let me say it differently. Why should people choose Cornell and Diehl, and we'll end the show that way?
I think people should choose Cornell and Diehl because we are a U.S. made hand blended pipe tobacco manufacturer. We care a great deal about the quality of the products that we're making. We're pipe people. We're tobacco people. We contribute a great deal to the community, and we care about pipe culture. And I think that we have a little bit of something for just about any flavor profile you can think of. We have a huge selection. We do really interesting things with small batches and limited editions, and I think we're quite accessible. You can send me an email at info@cornellanddiehl.com. You can contact me on Instagram or through Facebook, and you'll get an answer from me.
Yes, you will.
You know,
I can attest.
So yeah, I think we're accessible and we care. We're doing what we do because we love it.
Fifth Avenue
Absolutely.
Cigars loves Cornell and Diehl. Straight up. You guys, we love it.
Absolutely. And I can totally. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say that I'm glad that you've been able to be in contact with Joe Fabian. But Joe does travel, and I occasionally travel with him. I'll be seeing him in the next little bit, and I'll make mention that maybe a trip to Alaska at some point might be
Y'all
something.
have friends up here, all right? You're not going to be coming up here blind. If you and or Joe or whatever iteration, if you come up here, by all means, look us up. We'll have a good time. We would love to host and to have you here. We would love it. Any time our doors are open to you.
Well, I can tell you, Jeremy is a raving partier. So,
did you notice how many times I've refilled my glass during this last 2 hours?
Yeah, EDM music. Jeremy is there for anything EDM. No, but in all seriousness, thank you everybody for coming on. I really appreciate it. This has been, selfishly a show that I've wanted to have since December. So thank you everybody involved for making the show come true. And I can attest, if you call Cornell and Diehl, Jeremy will most likely be the one calling you back if you leave a message. That's what happened with me. We became very close friends to the point where we were talking to each other, and all of a sudden an hour goes by and we're talking about pipe tobacco, and it's like, holy shit, we actually have work to do. Cornell and Diehl is fantastic. You will reach out. You will get Jeremy's response. I will attest to that. And maybe you can become as well, as Jeremy's a very accepting person and more than willing to talk to anybody. As good of friends as I was during the call into the customer service line. So for everybody watching, thank you so very much for watching. This has been Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. And until we see you all again, everybody stick around at the end of the show. But until we see you all again, smoke as many pipes as you can. Smoke whatever pipe tobacco you like. And have an absolutely great rest of your week. Take care, everybody. Peace.